Today's experience will leave you in tears, for God by His mercies shows a shocking truth concerning some world leaders and the Church of Christ. Kindly stay to the end to understand this experience. My name is Fred Groen. I never saw it coming. One moment, I was laughing with my friends on the school bus. The next, everything changed. It happened so fast. A loud bang, like thunder crashing right beside my ear. The bus jerked violently. Someone screamed. Then another. My heart pounded in my chest, my hands gripping the seat in front of me. The world outside spun as the bus tilted to one side, metal groaning under the weight. I felt myself lift from my seat as if gravity had let go of me. My stomach twisted. My mind raced. Was this real? Was this actually happening? Then a crushing force. A sharp, blinding pain. And then, nothing. Silence. No more screams. No more screeching tires. No more noise at all. Just stillness. I should have been afraid. I should have felt pain. But instead I felt light. Weightless. Free. I opened my eyes, but something was different. The world around me didn't seem real anymore. It was there, but it wasn't. The bus, the shattered glass, the bodies slumped over the seats, I saw it all, yet it felt distant, like a dream I wasn't part of. Then I looked down, and I saw myself. I was lying there, motionless. My body, still and broken, trapped in the wreckage. But I was standing, unharmed, outside of it. I lifted my hand in front of me, but it felt different. Lighter. Almost transparent. I tried to touch my face, but there was no warmth, no weight. It was as if I wasn't really there anymore. Panic should have set in. I should have been terrified. But instead, a strange peace washed over me. The fear, the pain, it was gone. I wasn't gasping for breath. I wasn't hurting. I wasn't struggling. I was just free. Then, out of the silence, I felt something. A presence. Not scary. Not cold. Just strong. Stronger than anything I had ever known. I turned. And there he was. Jesus. He stood before me, his eyes filled with something I had never seen before. Something deeper than kindness, deeper than love. It was like he could see everything, all my thoughts, all my fears, all my questions. And yet he said nothing. Because somehow I already knew. I wasn't in the world anymore. I had crossed over. I stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. Not because I was afraid, but because I was overwhelmed. Jesus. I had heard about him my whole life. In Sunday school, in church, in bedtime stories my parents told me. But this was different. He wasn't just a story, or a picture in a book, or a name I prayed to before bed. He was real. More real than anything I had ever known. His presence filled everything. It wasn't like meeting someone for the first time. It was like being found. Like he had always known me, always seen me, even when I didn't see him. But Jesus spoke. And when he did, his voice wasn't loud or forceful. It was steady, peaceful, powerful. There is something you must see, he said. And with those words, the world around us began to change. In an instant, I was no longer standing in that endless place of light. The peace, the warmth of Jesus' presence, it was still there, but now I was somewhere else. I saw leaders, powerful men and women, their faces twisted with frustration and anger. Some I recognized, some I didn't. They stood in grand rooms, surrounded by others just like them. They argued, pointed fingers, slammed papers on tables. Their voices rose, their hands moved wildly, trying to control something that was already lost. And yet, none of them seemed to truly understand what was happening. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding. Is this because of them? I asked. His gaze never left the vision before us, but his voice was firm. This is not about them. I frowned. But they're the ones in charge. They make the decisions. Jesus finally turned to look at me. And for the first time, I saw something in his expression that I had not expected. Sorrow. The true battle is not political, he said. It is spiritual. I looked back at the leaders, at the chaos in the room. And then I saw something else. Something behind them. A presence. Twisting. Moving in the shadows, unseen but everywhere. It wasn't a person. It wasn't something physical. But it was there, whispering into the ears of those who were supposed to lead. And they listened without even realizing it. It twisted their thoughts, fed their pride, fueled their anger, blinded them to the truth. Jesus' voice was steady, but heavy with sadness. This is the true war, not against flesh and blood, but against the darkness that seeks to consume the world. And they do not see it? The vision did not fade. If anything, it became clearer. I could see more details now, the worry in the faces of the leaders, the exhaustion in their eyes. Some shouted over each other, their voices filled with anger. Others sat silently, deep in thought, their hands gripping the edges of tables as if holding on for stability. But despite all their words, all their plans, one thing was clear: they were lost. They spoke as if they had control, as if they could fix what was broken. But I could see it in their faces. They knew the truth. The world was slipping away, spinning into something they could no longer manage. And it terrified them. I turned to Jesus. They don't know what to do. He nodded. Because they do not seek wisdom beyond themselves. I watched as they made decisions, some out of fear, some out of greed, some out of a desperate attempt to hold on to their power. But none of them asked the real questions. None of them looked beyond their own understanding. They were leaders, but they had no direction. They were powerful, but they had no control. T of fear, S. Why don't they see it? I looked back at the earth, at the billions of people living their lives. They fought over land, over money, over status. They argued, they divided, they hated one another. And all the while, the real enemy stood in the shadows, laughing. Jesus' voice was gentle. They do not see the battle, because they are too busy looking elsewhere. I watched as people scrolled through their devices, their eyes glued to screens. News channels spread fear, celebrities became idols, material things became more important than faith. People were distracted by everything: entertainment, arguments, desires. So much so that they never stopped to ask what was happening behind it all. The enemy didn't need to fight openly. It just needed people to stop looking for the truth. They don't even know they're in a war, I whispered. Jesus nodded. That is the enemy's greatest weapon. Then I saw something even more heartbreaking. Churches, once places of worship, now abandoned. Some stood empty, their doors locked, dust gathering on the pews. Others were full, yet the hearts inside were cold. Some had turned their faith into a ritual, empty words spoken without meaning. Others had twisted the message, making it about power, wealth, or personal gain. And some simply walked away, believing they no longer needed God. I watched as people who once prayed now chased after success, as pastors who once preached truth now spoke only what was popular. The enemy had not destroyed the church with swords or fire. It had done something far worse. It had made people stop caring. Jesus looked at me, his voice steady. They think they are rich, that they need nothing. But they do not see that they are poor, blind, and naked. I wanted to cry. The people had been given living water, yet they chose to drink from empty wells. I saw young people, eager to be accepted, changing their beliefs just to fit in. I saw adults staying silent, afraid to be judged. I saw truth replaced with opinions, and faith traded for the approval of the world. I turned back to the vision before me, and I saw the great deception. People were consumed, not by truth, but by illusion. They built their lives on things that had no foundation, trusting in leaders who could not save them, believing in promises that would never be fulfilled. It wasn't just individuals, it was entire nations, entire generations. They argued over power, over wealth, over fleeting ideas, never realizing they were fighting the wrong battle. The true danger wasn't what they could see. It was what they couldn't. Something unseen moved through the world, whispering falsehoods, twisting truth, turning people against each other. And the people, convinced they were in control, followed blindly. They no longer recognized the voice of truth because they had spent too long listening to lies. All of a sudden I woke up. My limbs were stiff, my muscles weak, as if I hadn't moved in days, maybe longer. My throat was dry, my skin felt too tight, my chest ached with every breath. Beloved brothers and sisters, we cannot afford to live as if this world is all there is. Too many of us have grown comfortable, forgetting that we are only passing through. But what happens when we are suddenly faced with the reality beyond this life? Will we be ready? The world pulls us in every direction. Distractions, comfort, entertainment, the pursuit of success. It numbs us, making us forget the weight of eternity. But Jesus never called us to live for this world. He called us to be awake, to be watchful, to be ready. This story is not just a testimony, it is a warning. The weight of life here is nothing compared to the glory of what awaits us in Christ. Yet so many of us are walking blindly, carrying burdens we were never meant to hold, chasing things that will not last. The time is short. Jesus is calling us back to Himself, to remember the truth, to live with eternity in our hearts. This world is broken, but we have been given a mission to shine, to warn, to love, and to prepare. Some will listen, some will not. But we must be faithful. We must stand firm. Because one day, we too will cross that veil, and on that day, nothing else will matter except whether we were ready. Alright friends, this brings us to the end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and families. Kindly subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell icon to be the first to get updated anytime we upload a new experience sent to us. Remain blessed.